When a room full of elite debaters mocked a black student's speech, they thought they'd humiliated her, until a Supreme Court justice rose from the audience and turned their laughter into stunned silence. Amara Jenkins, a brilliant but underestimated college freshman, stepped onto the stage at a prestigious national debate tournament, her heart pounding with purpose. But when her opponents and the crowd jeered at her words, dismissing her as out of place, Amara's resolve didn't waver. What happened next wasn't just a comeback. It was a moment of truth so powerful it reshaped the room, the tournament, and her future. And when her mentor, a figure no one expected, stood to defend her, the world learned what real strength looks like. Before we dive into this powerful story of courage rising above prejudice, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. If this tale of a young woman standing firm against mockery resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe to Narratives of Black Struggles for more stories exposing the raw truths of racial inequity in America. Your support keeps these narratives alive. Picture a grand auditorium in Washington, D.C., its chandeliers casting golden light over rows of polished seats, the air buzzing with the confidence of the nation's top debaters. Amara Jenkins, a 19-year-old from Chicago's South Side, clutched her note cards, ready to prove she belonged. What she didn't know was that her first speech would ignite a firestorm and reveal the ally who'd change everything. Let's step into Chapter 1, where it all begins. Amara Jenkins smoothed the hem of her navy blazer as she stood backstage at the National Collegiate Debate Championship, held in a gleaming auditorium at Georgetown University. The year was 2025, and the room beyond the velvet curtains thrummed with anticipation. At 19, Amara was the youngest competitor, a freshman at Howard University, and one of the few black faces in a sea of mostly white, Ivy League-trained debaters. Her hands trembled slightly, clutching a stack of note cards covered in her neat, looping handwriting. Each card held a piece of her argument, meticulously crafted over months of late nights in her dorm, fueled by coffee and a fire to prove herself. She adjusted her glasses, her braids pulled back in a tight bun, and took a deep breath. The air smelled of polished wood and anticipation, tinged with the faint perfume of wealth. Amara's scholarship to Howard was her ticket out of Englewood, where she'd grown up dodging gang territory and helping her single mother, Carla, pay bills. Debate had been her escape, her weapon, her voice. She'd won local tournaments, earned a spot on Howard's team, and now stood here, against the best. But the weight of the moment pressed hard. Every eye would judge her, not just for her words, but for who she was. Backstage, her teammate, Malik, gave her a fist bump. "You got this, Amara." Hit him with that Chicago fire. His grin was warm, but his eyes flicked nervously to the crowd. They both knew the stakes. This wasn't just a debate. It was a battlefield of privilege, where accents, skin, and pedigrees were weapons as sharp as logic. Amara nodded, her mind drifting to her mother's words that morning, spoken over a crackling phone line. "Speak your truth, baby. They can't take that from you." Carla had worked double shifts at a diner to buy Amara's debate blazer, secondhand but pristine. Amara carried that sacrifice in her chest, next to a locket with her late grandmother's photo, a woman who'd marched in Selma and never backed down. The stage manager signaled her. "Jenkins, you're up." Amara stepped into the spotlight, her low heels clicking on the hardwood. The auditorium was packed, 500 seats filled with students, professors, alumni, and a scattering of VIPs. Chandeliers gleamed overhead, and banners proclaimed excellence in discourse. Her opponent, Ethan Caldwell, a Yale junior with slick-back hair and a smirk, stood at the opposite podium. The topic: should affirmative action be abolished? Amara was arguing the affirmative, a position she'd chosen strategically to challenge assumptions. She began, her voice clear despite the knot in her stomach. "Ladies and gentlemen, affirmative action, while well-intentioned, perpetuates a cycle of dependency and undermines merit. True equality demands a system where ability, not identity, defines opportunity." Her words were sharp, her logic tight, drawing from data, on economic mobility and case studies. She'd practiced this speech 100 times, knowing it would provoke. But she wasn't here to play safe. She was here to spark truth. Halfway through, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Ethan leaned into his microphone, interrupting. "With all due respect, Ms. Jenkins, your argument sounds personal. Are you sure you're not just defending your own spot?" Laughter erupted, sharp and cruel. A few students in the front row whispered, their eyes gleaming with amusement. Amara's face burned, but she pressed on, citing a 2023 Supreme Court ruling to bolster her point. The laughter grew louder, led by Ethan's teammates in the second row. "Go back to high school," one shouted. Another mimicked her Chicago accent, drawing more chuckles. The moderator, a professor in a tweed jacket, raised a hand but did little to stop it. Amara's hands gripped the podium, her note cards trembling. She thought of Carla, of her grandmother's locket, of the diner's grease-stained floors. She wouldn't break. Then from the back of the auditorium, a chair scraped. A figure stood, tall and unmistakable, her black robe catching the light. It was Justice Eleanor Ramsey, the first black woman on the Supreme Court, a legend whose dissent had reshaped legal history. The room fell silent, every eye turning to her. Amara froze, her heart racing. Ramsey was her mentor, a secret she'd kept even from Malik. And now, she was here. Justice Eleanor Ramsey didn't move at first, her presence alone enough to choke the laughter from the room. At 68, she carried herself with a gravitas that silenced doubters without a word. Her silver hair was pulled back, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. She'd been Amara's mentor for 2 years, ever since a chance meeting at a Chicago Youth Leadership Conference. Ramsey had seen something in Amara's fiery speech about voting rights, a spark she called unapologetic truth. They'd corresponded ever since, Ramsey offering guidance on debate strategy, law, and life. Amara had never expected her to attend the tournament. Ramsey's schedule was brutal: oral arguments, opinions to draft, lectures across the country. Yet here she was, in the back row, her robe a symbol of authority few could ignore. The moderator stammered, "Justice Ramsey, we're honored by your presence. Do you wish to address the assembly?" Ramsey's voice was low, deliberate, carrying to every corner. "I wish to hear Ms. Jenkins finish her argument." Without interruption, the words weren't loud, but they landed like a gavel. Ethan's smirk vanished, his teammates sinking into their seats. The crowd shifted, some leaning forward, others looking away, ashamed or intrigued. Amara swallowed, her throat dry. She met Ramsey's eyes, finding a nod so slight it was almost invisible. "Keep going," it said. She straightened, her voice steadier now. "As I was saying, the 2023 ruling against race-based admissions didn't end opportunity. It demanded we redefine it. Merit isn't a color. It's a measure of effort and impact." She wove in data from labor studies, her Chicago accent unapologetic, her logic unyielding. The room was hers now, every word a reclaiming of space. When she finished, there was no applause, only a heavy silence. Ethan cleared his throat, launching into his rebuttal, but his confidence was frayed. He stumbled over statistics, his jokes falling flat. Amara watched, her heart still pounding, but something new stirred. Pride, not just in herself, but in the woman who'd given her this moment. Flashback, Chicago, 2023. Amara, 17, stood on a community center stage, her speech about voter suppression shaking with passion. Afterward, a woman approached, her handshake firm, her voice warm. "You're Amara Jenkins? I'm Eleanor Ramsey. You've got a gift, but gifts need sharpening. Write to me." Amara did, sending essays, debate drafts, questions about justice. Ramsey replied to everyone, her letters a lifeline through Amara's senior year, through Carla's late shifts, through the fear she'd never escape Englewood. Back in the auditorium, the round ended. Judges scribbled notes, their faces unreadable. Ethan's team huddled, whispering fiercely, while Malik squeezed Amara's shoulder backstage. "You killed it," he said. "And Ramsey? Damn, girl, we didn't tell me you had that in your corner." Amara managed to smile, but her mind was on the crowd, on the laughter, on Ethan's jab about her spot. She knew what he meant. She was the diversity pick, the girl who didn't belong. She'd heard it before in high school, in scholarship interviews, in the way teachers praised her with surprise, as if talent from Englewood was a miracle. But Ramsey's presence changed something. It wasn't just support, it was a shield. As the teams filed out for a break, Ramsey approached, her robe now folded over her arm. "Walk with me," she said. Amara followed, her teammates staring as they stepped into a quiet hallway. Ramsey's voice was soft but firm. "You did well out there, but you're holding back." "What?" Amara hesitated, then spoke. "They laughed, Justice Ramsey. They didn't hear me, they saw me. My skin, my accent. I don't want to give them more to mock." Ramsey's eyes softened, but her tone didn't waver. "They'll mock what they fear. Your voice is your power, Amara. Don't shrink it to fit their comfort. Tomorrow, you debate again. Show them who you are." The next morning, Amara woke in her dorm, the weight of Ramsey's words heavy in her chest. She dressed carefully, same blazer, a white blouse, her grandmother's locket gleaming at her throat. The second round was against Princeton, a team known for ruthless precision. The topic, is the justice system inherently biased? Amara was arguing the affirmative, a position that felt personal, raw. She'd grown up seeing cousins caught in courtrooms, neighbors harassed by police, her mother's fear when sirens wailed. This wasn't theory, it was her life. The auditorium was fuller now, word of Ramsey's presence spreading. Amara spotted her in the third row. No robe today, just a tailored gray suit, her expression unreadable. Ethan's team sat nearby, their whispers sharp as knives. Amara's opponent, Clarence Gwynn, a Princeton senior, was formidable, cool, articulate, with a reputation for dismantling arguments like a surgeon. Amara felt the eyes on her, waiting for her to falter. She stepped to the podium, her note cards lighter today. She'd rewritten her speech after Ramsey's words, leaning into her truth. "The justice system," she began, "is a mirror of our society's flaws. Racial profiling, unequal sentencing, and systemic neglect prove it's not just biased, it's built that way." Her voice carried her Chicago roots, unpolished but fierce. She cited stats, Black Americans incarcerated at 5 times the rate of whites, blending them with a story of her cousin wrongfully arrested at 16. The crowd stirred, some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably. Claire smirked, jotting notes. Then it came, a heckler from the back, a male voice. "Stick to the data, not sob stories." Laughter followed, softer than yesterday, but sharp enough to sting. Amara's hands tightened on the podium, but she didn't pause. She locked eyes with Ramsey, who gave that same subtle nod. "Show them." Amara pivoted, her voice rising. "You want data? Here's data. 60% of black men in Chicago have been stopped by police without cause by age 25. That's not a story, that's a statistic. And it's why this system fails us." The room quieted, her words cutting through the mockery. Claire's rebuttal was strong, but Amara's fire burned brighter. Her closing lines a call to rebuild justice from the ground up. The judges' faces were unreadable, but the crowd's energy had shifted. Some clapped, hesitant at first, then louder. Malik whispered, "That's my girl," as they left the stage. But Amara's eyes were on Ethan's team, their glares promising retaliation. She knew the final round would be brutal. That evening, Ramsey met her at a coffee shop near campus. "You found your voice today," she said, sipping tea. "But they'll come harder tomorrow. Ethan's team is in the finals. They're not just debating, they're defending their world." Amara nodded, her locket warm against her skin. "I'm ready." Ramsey's smile was rare, fleeting. "Good, because you're not just fighting for a trophy. You're fighting for every girl like you who's been told she's less." The final round was electric, the auditorium packed to capacity. News of Ramsey's involvement had drawn reporters, cameras flashing as Amara took the stage. The topic, does diversity in education enhance or hinder academic excellence? Amara was arguing the affirmative, a position that felt like defending her own existence. Ethan's team, representing Yale, stared her down, their confidence a wall of privilege. Amara went first, her voice steady but fierce. Diversity isn't a checkbox, it's a catalyst. Studies showed diverse classrooms boost critical thinking by 20%. My presence here, my perspective, challenges you to think harder, to be better. She wove in her story Englewood, Carla's sacrifices, her own hustle, making it universal, a testament to resilience. Ethan's response was vicious. Ms. Jenkins romanticizes diversity, but let's be real, lowering standards for inclusion dilutes excellence. Not everyone belongs at this level. The crowd gasped, some cheering, others murmuring in disgust. His teammates amplified the attack, one shouting, "She's here for optics, not skill." The moderator hesitated, the room teetering on chaos. Amara's heart raced, but she thought of Ramsey, of her grandmother's march in Selma, of Carla's diner shifts. She stepped to the rebuttal podium, her voice ablaze. "You say I don't belong? I earned this spot with a 4.0, 3 state titles, and a scholarship you couldn't dream of. Diversity doesn't lower standards, it raises them, because I'm not just competing, I'm redefining what winning means." The crowd erupted, some standing, others shouting. Ethan's face reddened, his rebuttal faltering. But the mockery didn't stop. A Yale supporter yelled, "Go back to Chicago." The words hit like a slap, but Amara stood tall, her eyes finding Ramsey's. Then happened. Ramsey stood, slow and deliberate, her suit a beacon in the chaos. The room hushed, cameras swiveling. "Enough," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "This is not discourse, it's disrespect. Ms. Jenkins has out-argued, outclassed, and outshone her opponents. You mock her because she threatens your fragility. I'm here to say she belongs, more than any of you." The silence was deafening, broken only by a few gasps. Ethan's team froze, the judges scribbling furiously. Amara's eyes burned, but she didn't cry. She nodded to Ramsey, a silent thank you. The judges deliberated for an hour, the auditorium buzzing with tension. Amara sat with Malik, her hands clasped, her locket a grounding weight. Ramsey had left the room, her role done, but her words lingered. Ethan's team whispered nearby, their bravado gone. The crowd debated in hushed tones. Was Ramsey's intervention fair? Did Amara win on merit or sympathy? The head judge, a law professor, took the stage. This was a contentious round, but one team demonstrated superior logic, evidence, and resilience. The winner, by unanimous decision, is Howard University. The room exploded, cheers drowning out a few boos. Amara stood, Malik hugging her tight. Ethan's team stormed out, their coach muttering about bias. But Amara didn't care. She'd won, not just the trophy, but the right to be seen. Later, at the awards ceremony, Amara accepted the trophy, her voice steady. "This is for my mother, my grandmother, and every kid told they don't belong. We're not just here, we're leading." The crowd roared, cameras flashing. Ramsey, watching from the wings, gave her that rare smile. That night, Amara called Carla, tears in her voice. "Mama, I did it." And Justice Ramsey, she stood for me. Carla's laugh was warm, tired. "Baby, you stood for yourself." She just made sure they saw it. Weeks later, Amara's victory was national news. Her speech clipped on social media, trending with hashtag AmaraSpeaks. She became a symbol, not of victimhood, but of power. Howard offered her a full scholarship, and Ramsey invited her to clerk at the Supreme Court after graduation. Amara accepted, her sights set on law school, on becoming the next Ramsey. Back in Englewood, Carla hung the trophy in the diner, customers cheering every time they saw it. Amara visited often, mentoring kids at the community center, teaching them to debate, to fight with words. She wore her grandmother's locket always, a reminder of the women who'd paved her path. Ramsey wrote her a letter, sealed with the court's crest. "You didn't just win a debate, Amara. You shifted the conversation. Keep speaking. The world is listening." In Washington, the auditorium stood quieter now, but its walls held the echo of Amara's voice, of Ramsey's stand, of a moment when truth outshone prejudice. Amara wasn't just a debater. She was a force, and her story was only beginning. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to know what true strength looks like. Join us at Narratives of Black Struggles for more stories that shine a light on resilience and justice.